Well, I'm Catalina and I'm presenter number 3. Um, to start the assessment process, I thought about an objective, and my objective was that students will be able to write a short text describing a hypothetical situation using second conditional and connectors to support their statement. The validity arguments that I used at this stage was that I expected my students to learn about how to use second conditional to their writing performance and also to practice their writing skills by using connectors. The limitations were that students' lack of writing performance in English lessons. That's why I thought that it would be really difficult to work this, this skill with them. But I immediately thought that it was not impossible. Then I thought about a purpose. My purpose was for feedback. The validity argument at this stage was that I wanted my students to be aware about their performance concerning their writing skills using second conditional and connectors. Also, I wanted them to realize about their weaknesses and strengths when it comes to writing. A limitation was that it was hard to give feedback one by one. For that reason, a checklist was created in order to realize about their mistakes and also monitoring their work. The students' context is a 12th grade. There are 12th graders. They are not used to perform writing activities. English influence is mostly acquired from music, movies, and sitcoms. And also they are really committed students. The validity argument for this stage is that as students are not used to perform writing tasks, I decided to create an activity that involves their interests. Therefore, I asked them to write a hypothetical situation based on a famous film. Limitations were that as they are not used to perform writing tasks, they could struggle with vocabulary in order to support their statements. The communication through students and me was showing them the rubric and the requirements of the task. In order for students to understand what they have to do to successfully complete the task, they had the opportunity to work with the rubric, and also they had access to a sample of the task. The instrument was a writing text sent by email to me. The students can use computer instead of a piece of paper. In that way, they would change the traditional way of writing, and consequently, it would become into a catchy task. One of the reasons why I decided to write in computers was that one, because they are not used to write. So, in order to do a more interesting task, I decided to use the computer lab. And also in that way I could have immediate evidence in my email, so I could check them, I could check the answers and take time to send them some corrections back. The application was in a computer lab. All the students worked in the same place with the same conditions and amount of time in order to complete the task. As this is an assessment for feedback, the task was asked to be delivered the same day that was applied. In that way, students would receive immediate feedback. Indeed, there were some students that finished before the end of the class, and I had the chance to check their answers, to correct them, give them advices, and help them to deal with other grammatical mistakes that concerns writing, that maybe did not concern the checklist, but it did concern their writing skill. The interpretation was through a checklist rubric, as I mentioned before. The validity argument was that the evidence gathered clearly reflects the learning objective, and it is interpreted by the results obtained from the checklist. And the use was thought in order to improve students' writing skills. The results showed that students accomplished the learning objective, although they have to still work on other areas concerning writing. For instance, how to use connectors. So here we have the rubric. Level 12th grade. Here we have the learning objective, and above we have the checklist. Did the student properly use the second conditional? Yes or no? Did the student use at least the 3 connectors required? Yes or no? Did the student give the 3 reasons required to support his or her statement? Yes or no? This was the task. It is important to mention that before the application of this task, minutes before, I showed them a teaser from the Hunger Games movie. In that teaser, the main character was deciding about taking her sister's place when she was chosen to go to the Hunger Games. I showed them that video in order to work on their listening skills, and that led them to answer this question, which was made to assess their writing skills. So the instruction was: imagine that you are a famous blogger and your followers ask you to answer the following question. If you were Katniss Everdeen, what would you do in her place? Answer this question as if you were writing in your blog. Requirements: use a second conditional tense. Use at least 3 different connectors and give 3 reasons in order to support your answer. Here we have, I put the checklist above so they would know how they would be how they would be assessed. So here we have the interpretation of the evidence. There is our learning objective and the answer of the student number 1. I took 3 examples from 3 students. So the first one was: if I was Katniss, I would do the same because I love my sister and nobody can hurt her. But she's little. Because she's little and she loves life. The student properly uses the second conditional and uses the 3 connectors required. However, the reasons given are not completely consistent. Student number 2. Evidence. If I were her, I would do the same because it's not fair go. She's very young and I would fight for save her because she's my sister and I have to protect her and I can take her place. The interpretation is that the student properly uses the second conditional, he plays the connectors, and also states the 3 reasons required. And finally, student number 3 answered: if I were Katniss, I would take her place because it's too terrible to go there. Also, because I can fight for her. She's older than I, but I feel I'm stronger. She's very weak, and I don't want her dead because I love her very much. The student uses the second conditional and also uses the three reasons and the connectors required for the task. So, after the interpretations, I concluded the following. Students actually, they successfully complete the task, but there are other aspects of writing to work on. For instance, they already know how to use second conditional and connectors in sentences, but they are not still aware about how to mix both in order to support their ideas. The majority of students successfully complete the task with any complications. For that reason, I believe that the task was not as challenging as it should be for students at this stage. I realized that there were another aspects to be assessed that maybe were relevant in order to complete this specific task. But according to the checklist that I made, I would say that my assessment was valid because I was evaluating. I was assessing my students' writing competence through that parameters. So they were successfully achieved, although I believe that there are other aspects that they can work on. Finally, we as a group conclude the following. First of all, we noticed that our students need to be challenged. We need to challenge our students. Maybe we don't trust that much on their writing performance because we know that they are not used to perform writing tasks, but that doesn't mean that they don't know how to do it. Maybe they know, but they are not challenged in order to show what they know. Secondly, as presenter number 2 mentioned, and presenter number 3 thinks, there is confidence when it comes to English. So we believe that it's really important to take advantage of that confidence that our students have. So with that, we can work, we can challenge them, and we can teach them how to perform in this type of tasks. And third of all, we believe that we have to put emphasis in other areas concerning writing that can interfere on their performance. We know that we have to focus our activities and our learning objectives on what the curriculum states. But sometimes what our reality, our context doesn't allow us to achieve those objectives. For that reason, it's really important to try to work with what we have, and from that try to include the objectives of from the curriculum and our own objectives for each class. So here we have our references, and that was our presentation. Thank you very much.